Today we'll be discussing one of the most common writing used in university level, which is writing in the passive voice as opposed to the active voice. Now, before we can define the passive voice, let's first define what active voice is. So when a sentence is in the active voice, the subject performs the action on the verb. So here are some examples. Karl Marx, the subject, is doing the action of arguing that capitalism is whatever it may be. In the second example, we have Tom Cruise, the subject, doing the action which is elected to do his own stunts in the Mission Impossible movies. And in the last example, we have Johnny doing the action which is deciding to buy a car. So in these examples, we can see the subject is to performing the action on the verb. Now, where passive voice comes in is when the subject is no longer active. Instead, it is being acted upon by the verb. So in the first instance, we have the burgers were being eaten by the man. And in the second example, we have the car subject was bought by Johnny. And then in the third example, we have Ethan stunts in Mission Impossible were performed by Tom Cruise. In these instances, we can see that there is passive voice because in the first instance, we can see that the burgers are being eaten. And in the second example, we have the cars are being bought. And in the third example, we have Ethan stunts are being performed. These sentences do not really make sense in the long run. You can see from these examples that they don't really make sense, that they are confusing to the reader, and that they really aren't active. So now, one of the things we can do is we can change that passive voice to active voice. So let's take this first example. The burgers were eaten by the man. Now we can change this to the active voice by putting the subject, which is the man, and having them eat the burgers. So the men ate burgers. This is active because the men here are performing the action of eating burgers. Now in the second example, we have the car. The subject was bought by Johnny. We can change this to active by saying Johnny bought the car. So this comes back to the previous examples that we had. Ethan stunts in Mission Impossible performed by Tom Cruise. We can make this easily into Tom Cruise elects to do his own stunts in Mission Impossible movies, which falls along the lines of what active voice was first defined as. If we go back, when a sentence is in the active voice, the subject performs the action on the verb. So we can see from these instances, the subject is performing the action on the verb. Now, one of the things we have to make clear here is these examples are really easy. So you're not going to see these at a university level course because literature and writing about literature, is never that simple. So here we have some examples here about Catcher in the Rye. And these aren't really instances of research that has been done on Catcher in the Rye, at least to my knowledge. This is just some examples. So Catcher in the Rye is considered as a cause of teenage rebellion. It is suggested that Catcher in the Rye causes teenage rebellion. Now, I want you to take a minute and think, is this in the passive voice or in the active voice? Ready? These are passive. Now, how can we tell? Well, we can tell by the technique used in university levels, which is by zombies. Now, what does this refer to? This technique suggests that if you add by zombies, some phrase into any sentence where you believe there might be passive voice, and if the sentence still makes sense to you, then your sentence is in the passive voice. So let's take these examples. So Catcher in the Rye, is considered and we add by zombies as a cause of teenage rebellion. This sentence makes sense, so it's in the passive voice. Let's take the second sentence. It is suggested by zombies that Catcher in the Rye causes teenage rebellion. Again, it makes sense, so we can say that is both of these examples are in the passive voice. Now we can easily change these to active voice. We just have who's saying it. So the subject we can read research considers Catcher in the Rye as a cause of teenage rebellion, and research suggests that Catcher in the Rye causes teenage rebellion. These are really just common errors that you're going to make at a university level that you can easily change when you're writing about literature in an English course into active voice, where you can improve your marks by a substantial amount. Trust me when I know that. So let's focus on some more common university errors. So English professors hate these type of statements as stated, argued, defined by Karl Marx, and you might be using these a lot when you're referring or quoting from a work. Now, why do they hate these sentences or these types of statements? Well, it's because they're in the past tense and they're not active. They want you to be assertive and state that Karl Marx argues to find such states. This makes it more concise. If you ever had English teachers being more concise, this is what they mean. They want you to take all those unnecessary words and make it concise and make it in the present and active tense or active voice. Now, other areas include the use of is. Is one of the most commonly used words that you'll find. when you're writing about literature, but there can be right ways used to use it and wrong ways to use it. So this is one of the wrong ways to use it. Johnny is reluctant to stay away from the swamp. This is in the passive voice, and this can be easily altered again and made more concise into Johnny refuses to stay away from the swamp. Now let's look at another example. The use of to be or a similar form. The use of to be or similar forms such as been or be are common because they're easy to use, but they also suggest that the writer is a weak writer, so we can alter these again when we have a passive voice sentence such as Johnny is able to be a role model, and we can alter this quickly into Johnny is a role model, because then you're being assertive, you're being active, and you're being in the present tense, which is the most important thing. Now, would, could, should. On the surface, these may not look like problems, but these are conditional uses of verbs. They represent bad writing and will have major errors in assignments and will make you lose marks. So even if you're not discussing the being in the passive voice, such as like this, and you're changing this into the passive voice, if you're still using would, could, should, let me just get there, teachers are going to deduct marks from you. So here we have an example. This is actually from someone's essay. Johnny would then continue to harm Danny, as Ellen would watch in horror. This is really bad instance of writing because you have many unnecessary words that you could just cut out and make it simplified into Johnny continues to harm Danny as Ellen watches in horror. Then you have active voice, you have and go over in the passive voice. So in short, what are we trying to say? What we're trying to say is we want to limit the use of to be or similar phases because these are again in the passive voice. And if we don't know how to really identify if a passage is in the passive voice or not, we can use this as a by zombies. But most times you'll find that even with that use, you'll still be unsure because it'll be much more complicated sentences. In these cases, the go-to rule is to change past tense to present tense. And what I mean by this is, just go all the way back. So let's just look at this. Consider, we can easily change, we can easily change to considers, right? You want to get rid of the past tense and you want to replace it with present tense, which will make your writing better, especially when you're discussing literature in English classes. So this has been a great discussion.